Hi, it's Adam from AFR Autoworks here, and if you're finding the power of your EJ engine a little bit underwhelming, today we're going to talk about a couple of different paths that you can work down to gain performance on your car. We're going to try to outline it with clear chapters, some real numbers, and smart part choices. What to buy, when to buy it, and why you should. We like making sure that you're able to build your car once and make sure it's done right the first time. We want to help you love and enjoy your car, so we want to give you the best guidance we can, choosing the right parts that are going to suit your end goal and making sure that you're getting there with the most reliability, less dollars spent, better choices made. So if you purchased a 2002 to 2021 WRX or STI, you might notice that by today's performance standards, maybe it doesn't quite fulfill your expectations and maybe isn't quite the rally car of your dreams at this point. I love my Subaru and I've had lots of good times in it, but I can definitely say that a little extra power really makes them a lot more enjoyable. My rule of thumb is, look, if you can get close to 100 horsepower for every 1,000 pounds with kind of matching torque, it's going to really feel like a rally car and match that rally car heritage that they have. So when you're coming out of corners, it has enough power to really make the tires cry out a little bit, maybe get a little bit of a slip angle on, and just a whole bunch more fun. So we'll start with some options using the factory ECU upgrades and simple packages, then move into, bigger builds or, some real street performers. And from there, we'll take a look at what it might take if you're looking to make big power, being, 600 to 1,000 wheel horsepower range, and some of the considerations you might want to make. For a 2002 to 2021 STI, that might be through the use of a Cobb Accessport and Cobb's packages. Cobb's upgrade path makes it easy to select your package and will supply you a base file to get you going. And in most cases, I would say they work extremely well until you get to kind of your final goal. You can hold off on pro tuning. Custom tuning definitely can help, but it's not mandatory until you get to kind of your final destination, as long as you're sticking within their packages. For some cars, the Cobb upgrade path makes it easy to just gain some extra power, add some extra parts. You can do it one step, one part at a time, without having to get a pro tune in between every upgrade, because it comes with packages that you can upload the file for that package, and they work very well. You can move on to pro tuning as you add more parts or when you get to kind of your final destination. If you have a WRX or STI that perhaps isn't supported by Cobb, or your goals align better with a standalone ECU, Link ECU makes plug and plays for the 92 right up to the 2021 STIs, and you can do kind of limitless with them for the most part, whether it's just looking to tune the car better for Canadian fuel versus the stock ECU, get a little more boost, a little more power, and make sure the car stays reliable. It works perfect for that. That same plug and play ECU that slides into the factory enclosure is what I'm still running in our shop GC8 drag car, running 50 pounds of boost on E85 with all kinds of sensors and a CAN keypad, and really it's kind of limitless. So if you are looking for just a straight race car, or the goals align better with the standalone path, there's that option as well. We're gonna highlight why you might choose one, why you might choose the other, and you can decide for yourself. Whether you're just doing bolt-ons and basic performance mods, looking to build a real street performer, or you're looking to build a monster, we'll try to give you an idea how you would get there using a Cobb Accessport or a standalone ECU, which one might suit you best, and then we're gonna let you decide and put any questions you've got in the comments. So you just got a new to you STI, and you're finding the power a little bit underwhelming. You want a little more performance, feel a little bit more of that rally heritage, a little more grunt, a little more fun. You're probably going to be starting with a Cobb Accessport. The Cobb Accessport, it's tried and true and full of a ton of features. It's the only way to really properly calibrate the factory ECU in these, as well as putting in your hand the ability to swap tunes, read data logs, look at gauges, and make some tune adjustments for extra features like launch control. So we keep these Cobb Accessports in stock here at AFR Autoworks at all time, and it's a fantastic tool to monitor your car. The Cobb ecosystem is really great because it allows you to work within stages of modifications and keep your budget reasonable and your performance and drivability really good. You can start off with preloaded maps and you're gonna get around 260 wheel horsepower and 300 torque on an entirely stock vehicle on our dyno. If you switch to their Stage 1 Plus power package, you're gonna add a Cobb SF intake and airbox. You're gonna make a bit more power and a bit more torque, fuel dependent. Now, the Cobb SF intake is our intake of choice when you're having to work within a mass airflow meter. The intake works really well. It gives you a lot more range for more power down the road, and it makes the airflow past the mass airflow meter consistent and brings cool air into the engine utilizing the factory air ducting. You can also purchase the next gen Stage 2 package, or you can upgrade to it, which includes an access port, the Cobb SF intake, a 340 fuel pump, and Injector Dynamics 1050X injectors, which give us all that good small pulse width data and accurate information to put inside the Cobb, so your drivability is going to remain perfect. It also comes with Cobb fuel rails and lines, a silicone inlet, and one-step Kohler spark plugs. This is going to get you roughly, 25 to 35 additional horsepower and maybe another 50 to 70 torque, depending on your fuel quality. You can also get the Redline carbon fiber Stage 2, which is basically the same package. Instead of using the SF intake, it uses a carbon fiber intake. Looks fantastic, adds a little bit of a bling factor to your engine bay, and keeps that same Cobb quality and function. You can also run the next gen Stage 2 Plus Flex Fuel. It adds the Flex Fuel ethanol sensor and fuel pressure sending unit, plus custom tuning. You could expect around 50 to 60 extra horsepower and about 100 foot-pounds of torque on this setup, but you can run this package with the basic tuning supplied with it. And it really lets you get your car from point A to point B with a bunch of extra power without breaking the bank, using quality parts, and not having to pay a whole bunch for dyno time up to this point. Now, we do supply and support all these packages. We've been Cobb Pro Tuners for years. We're a Cobb Gold dealer, and we definitely know how to work our way around the Cobb product line and give you the best results with it. Quick note to consider, while working within the Cobb ecosystem, DTC suppression is limited, but the benefits of running a Cobb Accessport with their Cobb custom features and proper definitions of the ECUs, as well as the ability to run small pulse width adders for large injectors, which you don't get with an open source ECU, for example, or open source tune, far outweighs the benefits of any other option. So that we're definitely going to be going over in another video, but in the meantime, keep in mind, if you're working within the Cobb ecosystem, you're not going to be wanting to do TGV deletes or air pump deletes or going catless unless you're okay with a check engine light popping up on your dash. And on a car like a newer STI, it's also going to make your cruise control not work. So keep that in mind. It's a small caveat. If you're starting with a bone stock car, we can make you all kinds of power without having to be concerned about that. Some supporting mods that can really help you open up the engine, make a little more power. If you're wanting to go with a Pro Tune, for example, is we can add a downpipe. The downpipe opens up the exhaust and it's going to gain you some good response and power. Keep in mind, even a high flow cat will occasionally throw a code like a catalyst efficiency code. The Cobb Flex Fuel on a stock turbo with full exhaust, intake, fuel system, altogether, you can break 350 wheel horsepower, and we carry all these parts in stock. It's gonna rock, you're gonna make way more torque, and it's gonna be tearing the tires up coming out of corners. It's gonna really start feeling like a rally car. Upgrading the intercooler at this stage is not mandatory, but it definitely helps cooling on pump gas. Top mounts are easy and affordable, and front mounts nearly eliminate heat soak. Now keep in mind, when you're running a stock computer, the intake air temp sensor is in the mass airflow meter, which is in the turbo inlet. This means that your ECU doesn't really know if the intercooler is heat soaked. So front mounts nearly eliminate any heat soak concerns. It's overkill really when running a stock turbo, but it's gonna arm you for higher power down the road if that's part of your plan. An exhaust manifold can also be added at this stage. An unequal length manifold is going to give you that classic Subi rumble. An equal length gives smoother power and better flow. It's going to work a little bit better, but you do lose some of that Subaru rumble sound if that's what you're keen on. The ETS V2 equal length manifold performs great when you start wanting to make powers past 500 wheel horsepower. We like the Killer B manifold as well. And the RCM equal length manifolds are a popular option. Depends on where you're planning on ending up as your final power goal. Another advisable upgrade on an EJ is an air oil separator. When you start making a lot more power, your airflow goes up, and as airflow increases, so does your blow-by. With a flat engine, you tend to have more blow-by with oil in it, or more oil in your blow-by. This can mean oil pooling and carbon buildup. We recommend the radium air oil separator, and it needs to be installed appropriately for the climate you're in as well. We install these here, typically keep them in stock. We can definitely hook you up with one. If you're wanting to join the 400 to 500 horsepower club, then you're gonna need a bit more work again. So 400 wheel horsepower really is starting to be the sweet spot. You can get fast, reliable, and fun power out of your Subaru. If you're gonna run this on pump gas, your average setup is gonna get you anywhere from 370 to 410 wheel horsepower, let's say, depending on turbo selection. We like pairing a responsive turbo with a stock engine and making healthy power with great response, especially if you're using the factory camshafts. So you can take everything you've used in that stage 2 plus flex fuel plus front mount intercooler sort of situation on 93 octane fuel, downpipe, radium air oil separator, and this upgraded turbo setup, you're gonna make some pretty awesome power. This car here is fitted with a RCM 450 twin scroll setup, and it's likely to make around 400 wheel horsepower on Shell 93 octane. Once you have an upgraded turbo, bigger injectors, front mount intercooler, full exhaust, the next step you're gonna wanna do for more power is swap the car over to flex fuel. If you're making 400 wheel horsepower range, for example, on Shell 93 octane pump fuel, you can definitely make a lot more, maybe 500 plus on E85. If this car were to be, say, running a front mount intercooler, and we went all in on the turbocharger, this RCM 450, it's gonna be nice and responsive. The E85, it spools a little earlier even, and it's gonna make tons of power with great drivability, and it's just gonna be a blast to drive and a weapon. You just have to make sure at that point the engine's up for it. So you're gonna want, likely a closed deck block would be recommended, and some good solid head studs and head gasket solution. A setup like what's behind us on pump fuel, you might run 20 to 22 pounds of boost on it, maybe a little bit more if you're running a front mount intercooler. But if you're putting it on flex fuel, you might run 27, 28 pounds of boost, or whatever the turbo is capable of putting out at that point. If you're still on the stock clutch and you're starting to push the power, it's probably not gonna hang in there very long, or it's probably gonna slip. So at this point, we typically upgrade people to an Exedi ceramic twin plate. That's gonna let you launch the car, abuse the car a little bit, have a good time, and not worry about the clutch coming out of it. Another great addition at this point is switching the car out for some Kelford 264 cams and springs. This really lets you have your cake and eat it too. You can take a turbo that's, say, a 3076 size turbo, or this RCM 450, which does sacrifice some response to a smaller turbo, and you can get a lot of that back. So you're gonna get that low end grunt, better spool, broader power, and more top end power without sacrificing for the bigger turbo. One of these cars on E85, 264 cams, an RCM 450 turbo, it almost feels like driving a stock car response-wise, but it just makes 2.5 times as much power. It's really, really cool that you can make so much power, have it so drivable, and just yank the tires off in a responsive way, All right, so our racer path, as we call it, starts off with a standalone ECU build as an alternative to the Cobb Accessport. When you want full control, a standalone ECU is the way to go. We use the Link ECUs a ton. They work fantastic. It's what we're running in our shop drag car and this high horsepower bill up behind us. The standalone gives you some flexibility to run right from baseline 300 wheel horsepower builds right up to 1,000 wheel horsepower. You get a lot more data with a standalone ECU when it's hooked up to the factory CAN bus on, say, a 2015 to 2021 STI, like accelerometer data. You can put GPS speed into it, brake pressure, high rate logging. You can log up to 1,000 hertz with the standalone ECU, and you can run advanced safety controls. It's perfect for track or race car builds. That being said, it also does a really good job of controlling really large injectors. I've daily driven my car on ID 2600s on pump gas and E85 flex fuel, even winter driven it in that state. If you're gonna start off with a standalone ECU, they do make plug and plays for every Subaru model from 1992 to 2021 as far as the Imprezas go. And you're gonna get similar numbers to what you would get on a Cobb Accessport. So standalone ECU in a tune, you're gonna be getting 260 wheel, 320 torque or something like that on an entirely stock car, but it might change how you're gonna run your upgrade path. So as you move into kind of a full bolt-on package, silicone inlet, full exhaust, TGV deletes, etc., you're no longer really concerned about emissions compliance on a race car. If you want to do cat deletes or TGV deletes or air pump deletes, it's not a concern, as well as it does give you some more flexibility on safeties as well. Moving on from your kind of basic setup, you're going to add, similar to our street path, a pair of ID injectors, 1050s, 1300s, an upgraded fuel pump. Add this onto your full bolt-on. You're gonna get the most out of a stock fuel pump. And then when you go to full bolt-on plus flex fuel, we can bring in one of our AFR ethanol content sensors, tune it for pump gas, ethanol, anything in between, and we can get the absolute most power possible out of a factory turbocharger. This could get you 350 plus wheel horsepower in most cases. We use injector dynamics for all of our builds because injector dynamics gives you complete injector characterization, including the small pulse width adder tables. And when you integrate that with a fuel pressure sending unit for differential fuel pressure compensation, it also lets you run the injector dead times associated with that exact fuel pressure. So it makes it easy to go up and down with fuel pressure while maintaining accurate fueling. So if you're following our racer path, as we call it, on pump gas, you're able to do the TGV deletes, you're able to run perhaps a catless exhaust if you wish, and on pump gas, you're likely gonna get 400 to 440 wheel horsepower once you run one of our upgraded turbos. And this setup would include 93 Shell fuel, front mount intercooler, and turbo options such as our Tomioka 3076, Precision 58mm Gen 2, or the TPC G30 900 and the RCM 450. Now, at this power level, 400 wheel horsepower to 440, 450 wheel horsepower on pump gas, these turbos can be a little bit lazier than a factory turbo, for sure. Now, combining that with a set of Kelford 264 cams, you're gonna get that strong spool and rally car grunt along with the top end power, so it doesn't feel like a trade-off moving to that little bit bigger turbo. Most of these turbos will make 500 to 560 wheel horsepower on E85. The limiting factor starts to be what your short block and head stud choice has been. If you already have a set of ID 1700X injectors, E85 fuel, dual pump hangers, fuel pump rewire, you're gonna want to make sure that you're working within the range of what your block is happy to make. It's not a bad idea to move to a closed deck block at this point, and if you're wanting to get the most torque possible, improving your head gasket sealing by perhaps running a pair of 625 studs or half-inch studs, you'll be able to maximize the torque that these turbos are able to put out. Some things you might want to consider moving into this 500 to 500 wheel horsepower range is making sure you've got everything working in harmony. So a good equal length header like an ETS V2 or a Killer B Holy header is going to really help the exhaust move through, and these changes start making a bigger difference when you start getting into this power range. Another thing you're going to want to consider is your oil pan. When you start making 500 plus wheel horsepower, your oil temps go up a lot faster, and we like putting people into a higher volume oil pan, perhaps running a RCM baffle plate to keep the oil inside the pan, or a IAG competition oil pan setup. This is going to really help keep your oil temperatures down and keep the oil in the pan instead of up inside the cylinder heads. We have customers that have been daily driving their Subarus on setups like this, making 550 plus wheel horsepower for years with really strong reliability. If you're wanting to make 600 plus wheel horsepower, things are going to start changing a bit. You're unlikely to be trying to make 600 wheel horsepower on a stock location turbo, and all the choices you've made along the way are going to start making a bigger difference. So for example, I was running an equal length manifold or a semi-equal length manifold on my black car here. We have another YouTube video about this, and at 600 wheel horsepower, I switched it out for an ETS V2 equal length manifold, and I was able to pick up 60 wheel horsepower at, I think it was 8,200 RPM with just a manifold change. If you were making 300 or 400 horsepower, the difference would be much, much smaller. But as your power goals start moving up, every individual part choice starts making a bigger and bigger difference. You're likely to go with a rotated turbo kit at this stage. For the left-hand drive vehicles, we recommend the Extreme Turbo Systems rotated turbo kits. And for the right-hand drive vehicles, Roger Clark Motorsports makes some really nice rotated turbo kits, or as they call them, twisted turbo kits. Some other things you're gonna wanna do above and beyond the car that you're gonna run 5 or 550 wheel horsepower on is making sure that the cylinder heads are up to the task. You might consider doing a ported head at this point, although you can make this power on stock ports, no problem. You're also likely to be moving away from a 264 camshaft and switching to perhaps a 272 or a 280 camshaft, depending on the size of turbo you're running. On turbo sizing, you're gonna wanna start with something like a 62, 66 on the smaller side, and moving up to perhaps a 76, 75 for 1,000 wheel horsepower range. Anything in between, you're gonna wanna make sure you choose the appropriate AR for the exhaust housing and make sure that your exhaust manifold and up pipe is working in harmony with your turbo. On our shop drag car here, which is running a 76-75 precision on about 50 pounds of boost, making somewhere in the 1,000 wheel horsepower range. It has done the quarter mile at 9.1 at 162 miles an hour. It's running our CNC ported cylinder heads along with Kelford 280 camshafts, their badass valve springs, and we're also using some 1/2-inch 625 studs on cut ring gaskets. So as your power goes up again, you're gonna be considering moving over to a 1/2-inch head stud, likely running a cut ring gasket or a Firelock gasket, and moving beyond 800 wheel, we definitely recommend switching to a 625 1/2-inch stud. This is gonna keep your head on. We monitor coolant pressure on our drag car as well, and even at 50 pounds of boost on the cut ring gasket with those 625 studs, I've never seen the coolant pressure rise. So that's gonna really keep your heads clamped on. And the last thing you wanna do is pull an engine apart for a silly reason like a head gasket. So some of the reasons you might wanna switch to a standalone versus working within the limits of the stock ECU are that you can get more data, you can log it at a higher rate, you can run aftermarket dash displays and dash loggers. So if you are planning on using your car for motorsports use and you wanna be able to log all your track data and overlay it with a data analysis software, for example, you're gonna want a standalone ECU. The plug and play standalone ECUs from Link have 3-axis accelerometers built into them. They have the ability to run more injectors, more sensors. You can also run a CAN keypad and other CAN devices. So if you're wanting to run anti-lag, rolling launch control, rolling anti-lag, you can do all that with the standalone. I don't think motorsports features are a really big sell, but if it's something you want, you're gonna need a standalone ECU for it. You're also gonna really appreciate the ability for the ECU to log automatically. So I typically set up the Link ECU so that when you go wide open throttle, it automatically logs the data in your ECU. And we can also set you up with a CAN keypad so that you can override your logging, override your pumps and fans, choose to turn on anti-lag, rolling anti-lag, launch control levels, boost control levels, cruise control, all these sort of things can be run through a CAN keypad. We can also run a CAN gauge, which will allow you to see pertinent data that the ECU is seeing. So if we're gonna put you into a car that's run by a Link ECU, we're not gonna get you an oil pressure gauge, we're gonna get you an oil pressure sending unit that sends the data to the ECU. The ECU can then use that data to do an oil pressure based rev limiter and log it. And after that, you can put in place a CAN gauge that'll allow you to see any data the ECU is seeing at this CAN gauge for your wideband, oil pressure, fuel pressure, RPM, shift cuts, check engine lights, anything like that. Another part you need to consider is the clutch you're gonna run in your car. As your power goes up to 600 plus wheel horsepower, the clutch you're gonna use and how you're gonna drive the car make a big difference. If you're gonna be drag racing or launching the car a lot, you're gonna wanna make sure you select a clutch that can stand that abuse. It also needs to just plain hold the power. So your Stage 1 HD probably isn't going to cut it anymore. You're going to need something that's likely a twin disc clutch, and if you want any level of drivability, you're going to be definitely running a twin or a triple disc clutch at this point. At AFR Autoworks, we stock a lot of these parts and we install them all. Intakes, fuel systems, access ports, intercoolers, manifolds, AOSs, clutches, turbos, gaskets, studs. Just tell us your goal and we'll map the way for you to get there. Our goal is for you to have your car built once and done right, and help you love and enjoy it for the lifespan of it. So thanks for watching, and don't forget to leave a comment. If you have more questions, definitely post them below and I'll do my best to get to them. I like seeing, what your questions are. It gives us an idea of what kind of things we should be doing videos about. And subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for our next episode.